Hanil Kang stared at the flickering screen in front of him as his cargo ship moved through the dark space between stars. The message had come through on an old emergency channel that most people forgot existed. His fingers moved across the control panel as he tried to clean up the signal. The words that appeared made his stomach feel heavy. The Volani were dying. Daeho Park looked up from his engineering station where he had been fixing a broken power coupling. His hands were dirty with engine grease, but his eyes were sharp and focused. "Captain, are you seeing this transmission too?" Hanel nodded slowly. The message was clear even though it came from very far away. The Volani homeworld was breaking apart from the inside. Their planet's core had become unstable and was causing terrible earthquakes and storms. The air itself was becoming poisonous, as gases leaked up from deep underground. They had maybe 3 months before everyone on the planet would die. "How many of them are there?" asked Yuna Lee from her communication station. She was the best at understanding alien languages that Hanul had ever met. Her fingers danced over her equipment as she tried to get more information from the weak signal. "The message says about 2.5 million, Hanul replied. He felt his chest tighten as he thought about that number. 2.5 million living beings facing death because their world was falling apart. Tai Min's Song came onto the bridge carrying his medical scanner. He had been checking the health of their small crew when the emergency signal started playing throughout the ship. "I heard the transmission in the medical bay. Are they asking for help?" "They are begging for help," Yuna said quietly. Her face looked sad as she listened to more of the message. "The Volani sent this same plea to everyone in the galaxy. They need ships to take them away from their dying world. They cannot save themselves." Hanul had met Volani before during his years as a cargo ship captain. They were peaceful people, made of something that looked like living crystal. They spoke to each other using musical sounds instead of words like humans did. When they were happy, their bodies would glow with soft light. When they were scared or sad, the light would fade, until they looked almost gray. "What did the Galactic Council say?" Daeho asked. He already knew the answer would not be good. The Council was made up of the most powerful alien species in the galaxy. They made decisions about which worlds got help and which ones were left alone. Yuna's face grew darker as she found the Council's official response. They said no. The Council voted yesterday. They will not send any ships to help the Volani. "Why not?" Taemin asked. His voice sounded angry. As a doctor, he could not understand why anyone would refuse to help dying people. "The official reason is that it would cost too much," Yuna explained as she read from her screen. "The Council says they would need thousands of ships to move all the Volani to safety. They say the Volani have nothing valuable to give back for. Such an expensive rescue." Hanyul felt his hands make fists. He had seen how the galaxy worked for many years. The strong species, like the Zenthari and the Corvan Federation, only helped others when they could get something good in return. The Volani were gentle and peaceful. They did not have powerful weapons or rich mines, or anything else that the big powers wanted. "There is more," Yuna continued reading. "The Council says that trying to save the Volani would be too dangerous. Their world is breaking apart very fast. Any ships that go there might get destroyed by earthquakes or poisonous gas. So, they are just going to let them all die?" Daeho's voice was filled with anger now, too. "The message says the Council wishes the Volani good luck in their final days," Yuna said. She sounded like she wanted to be sick. "They hope the Volani will face their end with dignity." Hanel stood up from his captain's chair and walked to the big window that showed the stars outside. His ship was not very big or very fast. It was designed to carry cargo from one world to another, but it could carry people too if needed. He thought about the Volani he had met before. They had always been kind to him and his crew. They would offer beautiful music as gifts, and their crystal bodies would glow with happiness when they saw humans. "Captain," Taemin said softly, "what are we going to do?" Hanel turned around to look at his crew. These 3 people had been with him for many years. They had faced danger together and always helped each other. Daeho could fix anything that broke on their ship. Yuna could talk to any alien species. They met. Taemin could heal almost any injury or sickness. They were good people who cared about others. "The Council says it would take thousands of ships to save the Volani," Hanel said slowly. "But we have one ship. We can save some of them." Our ship can carry about 300 people if we pack them in tight, Deho said. He was already thinking like an engineer about how to fit more people into their cargo holds. 300 out of 2.5 million, Yuna said. It is not very many. It is 300 people who will live instead of die, Hanul replied. And maybe we are not the only ones who think the council is wrong. Maybe other human ships will help too. Taemin nodded firmly. The Vellani breathe different air than we do. I will need to change our life support systems to keep them alive during the trip. I can send messages to other human captains, Yuna added. Not official council messages, but private ones on the old smuggler channels. If we ask for help, maybe others will come. Deho was already making notes on his datapad. We will need special equipment to keep the Vellani safe. Their crystal bodies are very fragile. Too much gravity will hurt them. Too much vibration from our engines might crack them. Hano looked at each of his crew members. They were all scared, but they were all ready to try. They knew this mission would be dangerous. They knew the council might punish them for interfering. They knew they might fail and die trying. But they also knew they could not just fly away and let millions of innocent people die when they had the power to save at least some of them. Set course for Vellani space, Hanul ordered. Maximum speed. Captain, Yuna said as her fingers moved over her communication controls. I'm already getting responses to my messages. Captain Jinwoo Choi says his colony ship can carry thousands of Vellani if we help him modify it. Captain Yoonji Kim says she knows how to change human ships to support Vellani life systems. How many ships? Hanul asked. Yuna smiled for the first time since the emergency message had arrived. 47 human ships have answered so far. More messages are coming in every minute. Hanul felt hope growing in his chest. Maybe they could not save everyone, but they could save many. The galaxy might have written off the Vellani as not worth saving, but humans understood something that the Council did not. Every life mattered. Every person deserved a chance to live. As their ship turned toward Vellani space and began to move faster through the darkness between stars, Hanul made a promise to himself. The Vellani would not die alone and forgotten. Humanity would stand with them even if the rest of the galaxy turned away. The race against time had begun. 3 days later, Hanul stood on the bridge of his ship watching dozens of human vessels appear in the space around the dying Vellani homeworld. Each ship that arrived brought new hope, but also new problems to solve. The planet below them looked sick with strange colors swirling in its atmosphere and bright cracks of lava showing through its surface. Jinwoo Choi's massive colony transport ship New Seoul was the largest vessel in their growing fleet. It had been designed to carry thousands of human families to new worlds, but now Jinwoo was trying to figure out how to modify it for Vellani passengers. His ship could hold 10,000 Vellani if they could solve the air and gravity problems. The Vellani need methane and nitrogen to breathe, Yoonji Kim explained over the communication channel. Her engineering ship had arrived that morning loaded with equipment and spare parts. Human ships are filled with oxygen which will poison them. We need to change the air in entire sections of every ship. Taemin had been studying Vellani biology on his medical computers. Their crystal bodies are much more fragile than human bones and muscles. Normal human gravity will crush them slowly. We need to reduce gravity to about 1/3 of what humans are used to. How long do we have? Asked Yoon-Soo Nam. His mining colony had sent 3 cargo ships loaded with breathing equipment and power generators. My sensors show the planet is getting worse every hour. Yuna looked up from her communications station, where she had been listening to transmissions from the planet's surface. The Vellani say they have maybe 2 months before the poisonous gases reach their cities, but the earthquakes are getting stronger. Some of their crystal buildings are already cracking. Hanal watched the planet turn slowly below them and felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Over 100 human ships had answered their call for help, but even that might not be enough. They needed to move over 2 million Vellani in less than 2 months, using ships that were never designed for such a mission. We start with the children and the elderly, he decided. They are the most fragile and will die first if we wait too long. Yoonji's voice came through the speakers with excitement. I think I have solved the air problem. We can use force fields to create separate atmosphere zones inside each ship. The force fields will keep human air in some sections, and Volani air in others. What about gravity? Deho asked. He had been working on the same problem in their ship's engineering section. Gravity generators, Yunji replied. Most human ships have them, but we only use them to make normal Earth gravity. If we reverse the settings, we can make areas of low gravity for the Volani. Tai Min shook his head. That will work for short trips, but not for the long journey to safety. Low gravity for weeks will make the Volani even weaker. We need something better. What if we spin the ships? Suggested a new voice. Captain Solbin Jiang had just arrived in her converted military frigate. If we attach the Volani sections to rotating parts of our ships, we can create the exact gravity they need. The idea was crazy, but it might work. Human engineers began working together to figure out how to modify their ships while the clock kept counting down. Every day they spent planning was a day closer to the planet's final collapse. Down on the planet's surface, teams of humans in protective suits were building landing platforms near Volani cities. The ground shook constantly, and toxic gases made the air deadly to breathe. But human workers kept building even when the earthquakes knocked down their structures. We lost another platform to a lava flow, reported Wu Jin Lee from the planet. He was leading one of the construction teams. But we finished 3 new ones today. We can start loading Volani families tomorrow morning. The first evacuations were heartbreaking to watch. Volani families carried their few possessions in crystalline containers that rang like bells when they touched each other. The adults tried to stay calm, but their bodies flickered with fear colors. The children glowed very dimly as they clung to their parents. They are singing, Yuna realized as she listened to the Volani communications. It is not just talking. They are singing songs to calm their children during the evacuation. Hanel watched the first group of Volani refugees board his ship through modified airlocks. Their crystal bodies moved carefully in the low-gravity sections that Yunji had created. The air they breathed smelled strange and sharp, but Taimin confirmed it was keeping them healthy. Captain? One of the Volani elders spoke to Hanel through a translation device. Her name was difficult for humans to pronounce, but it meant something like clear morning song. Her crystal body was pale blue and covered with intricate patterns. Why are your people helping us? The Great Council of the Galaxy has said we are not worth saving. Hanel thought about her question. It was hard to explain in words that a translation machine could handle. Because it is the right thing to do, he said finally. Because every life has value. Because if we can help someone, we should help them. Clear Morning Song's body began to glow brighter. Your species confuses us, but we are grateful. We will remember this kindness. The evacuation continued day and night, but it was not going fast enough. More human ships arrived every day, but the planet was dying faster than they had expected. Earthquakes were destroying Volani cities faster than the rescue teams could reach them. Toxic gas clouds were spreading across entire continents. We need more time, Deho said, as he looked at the numbers on his screen. At this rate, we can save maybe half of them before the planet becomes unlivable. Then we work faster, Hanul replied. We take bigger risks. We push our ships harder. Human captains began landing their ships directly in Volani cities, instead of using the safer remote platforms. The ships' hulls were damaged by acid rain, and their engines were strained by the unstable gravity fields around the planet. But every ship that landed could save more Volani lives. Mi Young-oh arrived with a squadron of small, fast ships that could dart in and out of the worst areas. Her pilots were young and brave and willing to fly through volcanic ash clouds to reach trapped families. They called themselves the Rescue Hawks, and they saved thousands of Volani from areas that the bigger ships could not reach. Incoming transmission from galactic space, Yuna announced with worry in her voice. It is from the Zenthari Empire. The message was short and cold. The Zenthari Admiral Vex Thara ordered all human ships to leave Volani space immediately. The Sabered area had been declared a quarantine zone, and any ship that remained would be considered to be breaking galactic law. What do we do? Asked Jin Wu over the communication channel. His ship was loaded with 10,000 Volani refugees, but there were still millions more waiting for rescue. Hanul looked around his bridge at his crew. They had risked everything to save people they had never met before. They had worked without sleep for weeks to modify their ships and rescue as many Villani as possible. Now, the powerful alien empires were coming to stop them. "We keep working," Hanul said firmly. "We came here to save lives, and that is what we are going to do. Let the Zenthari come. We will show them what humans do when innocent people need help." The rescue fleet prepared for the worst as enemy ships appeared on their long-range sensors. But they did not stop loading Villani refugees. They did not run away to safety. They kept working to save every life they could because that was who humans were. They were the ones who helped others even when it was dangerous. They were the ones who believed every person deserved to live. The battle was coming, but the humans would not abandon the Villani. Not now. Not ever. The Zenthari war fleet appeared like dark shadows against the stars. 12 massive battlecruisers moved in perfect formation toward the human rescue ships. Their hulls were black metal that seemed to absorb light, and their weapons glowed with deadly energy. Admiral Vex Thara's flagship was twice the size of the largest human vessel. Hanul watched the enemy ships approach on his scanner, while Villani refugees continued to board his ship below. The Crystal people moved slowly in the modified gravity sections, but they kept coming. Families carrying their few possessions in musical containers that chimed softly as they walked. Children whose bodies flickered with fear, but who trusted the strange humans to keep them safe. Human vessels. Admiral Vexathara's voice came through the communication system, like ice scraping against metal. "You are violating Galactic Council law by interfering in a quarantine system. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Sol Bin Jiang's military frigate moved between the Zenthari fleet and the civilian rescue ships. Her voice was calm but determined when she replied. "Admiral, we are conducting humanitarian operations to save civilian lives. We request you allow us to complete our mission." "The Council has declared this world beyond saving," Vexathara responded. "Your presence here serves no purpose except to delay the inevitable. Leave now while you still can." Hanul opened a channel to all the human ships. Over 100 vessels were spread around the dying planet. Some were still loading refugees. Others were already heading towards safety with full holds of Villani families. All of them were operated by volunteers who had risked everything to save strangers. "This is Captain Hanul Kang to all ships," he announced. "The Zenthari want us to abandon the evacuation. They want us to leave the remaining Villani to die. I will not give that order. Every captain must decide for themselves what to do." The responses came back immediately. Jinwoo Choi's massive colony transport was still loading refugees from 3 different cities. "New Seoul staying. We have work to finish." Mi Young-oh's voice crackled through the static from the planet's surface, where her small ships were still rescuing trapped families. "Rescue Hawks staying. People still need help down here." One by one, every human captain made the same choice. They would not abandon the Villani. They would not run away to save themselves while innocent people died. They would stand and fight if necessary, because it was the right thing to do. The Zenthari ships moved closer, and their weapons began to charge with deadly energy. But something unexpected happened. Instead of forming a battle line, the human ships scattered in all directions. Small, fast vessels darted between asteroids and space debris. Larger ships used the planet's gravity to swing around to unexpected positions. "What are they doing?" Vexathara demanded, as her tactical officers tried to track the confusing human movements. "Why are they not forming a proper battle formation?" Solbin's frigate Defiance led a group of armed human ships in what looked like a suicidal charge directly at the Zenthari flagship. But at the last moment, they split apart and weaved between the enemy vessels, firing at weapon systems instead of vital areas. They were not trying to destroy the Zenthari ships. They were trying to disable their ability to fight. "All human vessels," Solbin broadcasted on an open channel. "Protect the evacuation ships. Disable enemy weapons, but avoid killing the crews. Show them we are better than they think we are." The space battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships sacrificed themselves not to destroy their enemies, but to save their friends. When Mi Young's fighter squadron ran out of ammunition, they used their ships as guided missiles to knock out Zenthari weapon platforms. When Wu Jin's cargo hauler took critical damage, he rammed it into a Corvin destroyer's engines to stop it from firing on evacuation transports. The aliens were confused by human tactics that made no sense to them. Why would anyone choose certain death to save the lives of strangers? Why would warriors show mercy to enemies who threatened innocent people? Why would a species risk everything for people who could give them nothing in return? Human frigate. Defiance is breaking apart, reported a Xanthari tactical officer. Their hull is splitting, but they are still firing. Solbin's ship had taken terrible damage protecting a group of refugee transports, but she refused to retreat. Her engines were failing and her weapons were mostly destroyed, but she kept fighting. This is Captain Solbin Jiang. My ship is finished, but the evacuation continues. All human vessels maintain your positions. Then something happened that shocked every alien in the fleet. When Xanthari crew pods were ejected from a damaged destroyer, human rescue ships immediately moved to save them. Even while under fire from other Xanthari vessels, human captains risked their lives to rescue enemy sailors who had been trying to kill them moments before. "Why are they saving our people?" a young Xanthari officer asked his admiral. "We came here to stop them. We fired on their ships. Why do they care if we live or die?" Admiral Vexithara had no answer. In all her years of military service, she had never seen anything like this. Enemies were supposed to hate each other. They were supposed to try to cause as much damage as possible. They were not supposed to risk their own lives to save the people who opposed them. The planet below continued to tear itself apart while the battle raged in space above. Lava flows destroyed entire continents, and poisonous gases filled the atmosphere. But human ships kept landing and taking off with loads of Volani refugees even as the ground shook beneath them. "Final evacuation run," Mi Young announced as her remaining pilots prepared for one last rescue mission. "Sensors show massive seismic activity building up. The planet has maybe 6 hours before total collapse." Hanel watched his scanner as the last groups of human ships rose from the planet's surface, carrying the final Volani survivors. They had done the impossible. They had saved over 2 million people from certain death using cargo ships and civilian transports that were never designed for such a mission, but the cost had been terrible. Dozens of human ships had been destroyed or damaged beyond repair. Hundreds of human crew members had died protecting the evacuation. Solbin's defiance was now just a cloud of metal debris drifting through space. "This is the final transport," announced Captain Boram Kwan as her cargo ship cleared the planet's atmosphere with the last group of Volani refugees aboard. "All civilians are clear. Repeat, all civilians are clear." As if responding to her words, the planet below suddenly convulsed with massive earthquakes that split continents apart. The atmosphere caught fire, and the world's crust cracked open like a broken egg. Within minutes, the Volani homeworld that had existed for millions of years was gone forever. Admiral Vexithara stared at the destruction on her main screen, and then at the scattered human ships that had accomplished what the Galactic Council said was impossible. Her weapons were still charged and ready to fire, but she found herself unable to give the order to attack. "Admiral," her communications officer said quietly, "we are receiving transmissions from the human fleet. They are offering medical assistance to our damaged ships." Even now, after everything that had happened, the humans were still trying to help their enemies. They had saved every Volani life they could reach, and now they wanted to save Xanthari lives too. It made no sense according to everything the galaxy believed about war and conflict. "Stand down weapons," Vexthera ordered finally. "Signal the fleet to withdraw." As the Xanthari ships pulled back, the human rescue fleet began the long journey to safety carrying their precious cargo of Volani refugees. They had lost many ships and many friends, but they had won something more important. They had proven that some things were worth fighting for even when the odds seemed impossible. The galaxy would remember what happened at the Volani homeworld for a very long time. 6 months after the rescue at the Volani homeworld, Kyung-ho Yoon sat in his small news office on the human colony of New Terra, watching reports flood in from across the galaxy. As one of the few human journalists covering galactic affairs, he had been trying to understand how the Volani evacuation had changed everything. The footage was playing on every communication network in known space. Human ships sacrificing themselves to protect refugees. Human crews rescuing enemy sailors, even while under attack. The moment when Solbin Jiang's frigate Defiance broke apart while still firing to protect evacuation transports. Most shocking of all, the sight of humans showing mercy to the very aliens who had tried to stop them from saving innocent lives. The response has been unlike anything we have seen before, Kyung-ho dictated to his recording device. Species that have never questioned Galactic Council decisions are now openly debating whether the Volani should have been abandoned. The philosophical implications are spreading throughout civilized space. On the planet Refuge, which had been hastily prepared as a new home for the Volani survivors, Haiwan Shin was learning to live among humans. Her crystal body was slowly adapting to the slightly different atmosphere and gravity. Most importantly, she was trying to understand the strange species that had saved her people. They ask for nothing in return, she explained to other Volani through harmonic frequencies that sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. The humans spend their own resources to build us homes. They share their food with us. They learn our language and teach us theirs. When I ask why they saved us, they seem confused by the question. Boram Kwan had been appointed as the administrator in charge of Volani resettlement. Her office was constantly busy with human volunteers and Volani families working together to solve the countless problems of building a new society. The challenges seemed overwhelming at first, but unexpected solutions kept appearing. The Volani have abilities we never understood before, Boram reported to the human colonial government. Their harmonic communication can detect structural weaknesses in buildings before human instruments notice them. They can sense stress patterns in metal and crystal that our engineers miss completely. Working with them has made our construction projects much safer and stronger. But the humans were paying a price for their heroism. The Galactic Council had imposed severe economic sanctions on all human worlds. Trade routes that human merchants had used for decades were suddenly closed. Advanced technology that human colonies needed was no longer available. Medical supplies became scarce and expensive. The Corvin Federation had declared human shipping to be a threat to galactic security. They began stopping human cargo vessels and searching them for imaginary weapons. Several human crews had been arrested on false charges of smuggling and were being held in Corvin military prisons. The pressure is working, reported a Zenthari, economic analyst to the council chambers. Human colonies are struggling without access to galactic trade networks. Several worlds have requested permission to abandon the refugees and rejoin normal commerce. But the opposite was happening. Instead of abandoning the Volani, human colonies were finding new ways to survive. They began trading more with each other and developing technologies they had never needed before. The crisis was making humanity stronger and more independent. More importantly, other species were starting to question the Council's actions. The Miran Collective, known throughout the galaxy for their wisdom and philosophical debates, published a formal statement condemning the abandonment of the Volani. They called it a failure of moral leadership that shames all civilized species. The Threxian trade union saw opportunity in the situation. They began offering secret contracts to human shipping companies, paying premium prices for cargo runs that the Council had banned. Threxian merchants had always cared more about profit than politics, and they recognized that human reliability and courage made them valuable business partners. Even within the Zenthari Empire, Admiral Vexithara's report about the battle at the Volani homeworld had caused heated debates. Military officers who had spent their careers believing in strength and dominance found themselves questioning whether the humans had actually demonstrated a superior form of power. They defeated us without destroying us, one young Zenthari, captain argued during a strategy meeting. They showed mercy to enemies who would have shown them none. They proved their point without proving their hatred. Perhaps there is something to learn from this approach. In the depths of space, Hanil continued to run cargo between human worlds and the growing Volani settlements. His ship had been repaired, but it still carried scars from the battle. More importantly, it carried something new. Several Volani families had chosen to stay aboard as permanent crew members. Captain, Haiwan spoke to him through the translation device she wore around her crystalline neck. My people have been discussing something important. We want to offer our services to help other species in danger. Hanel looked up from his navigation charts with surprise. You want to become rescuers yourselves? We learned from watching humans that saving lives is more important than saving money, Haiwan explained. Her crystal body glowed with determination. The galaxy is full of species that the Council might abandon in the future. We want to be ready to help them. The partnership between humans and Volani was growing stronger every day. Volani Harmonic, Abilities combined with human engineering skills created innovations that neither species could achieve alone. Their joint settlements became models of cooperation that other species came to study and admire. But the most important change was happening in the hearts and minds of billions of people across the galaxy. The footage of human sacrifice and Villani gratitude had touched something deep in many species. They began to question whether the Council's cold calculations of profit and loss were really the best way to make decisions about life and death. "We are receiving reports from 17 different species," Kyung-ho noted in his latest broadcast. "Citizens are demanding that their governments adopt new policies for humanitarian assistance. The Villani rescue has become a symbol of what the galaxy could be if we chose compassion over convenience." The Council was growing worried about these developments. Their power depended on species accepting that some people were worth saving and others were not. If that basic assumption was questioned, their entire system of control might collapse. "The human actions have created instability throughout our sphere of influence," a council advisor reported during a closed session. "Species that have never challenged our authority are now forming independent humanitarian groups. They are organizing rescue missions without council approval." On refuge, Haiwan stood with Boram watching Villani children play with human children in the settlement's central garden. The crystal children glowed with happiness, while the human children laughed with delight at their new friend's natural light show. Neither group seemed to care that they were from different species or different worlds. "Do you think this is what the future looks like?" Boram asked, as she watched the children share their games and stories. Haiwan's body pulsed with warm golden light. "I think this is what hope looks like. The humans showed us that strangers can become family. Now we must show the galaxy that enemies can become friends." The changes that began with a desperate rescue mission were spreading throughout known space. Species that had never worked together were forming new alliances. Worlds that had been ignored by the Council were finding their own solutions to problems. The galaxy was slowly learning that there might be a better way to treat each other. But the biggest test was still coming, and when it arrived, it would require everything that humans and Villani had learned about working together to save not just one species, but the entire galaxy itself. 18 months after the Villani rescue, emergency signals began flooding communication networks throughout the galaxy. Ancient machines that had been sleeping for thousands of years were suddenly awake and very angry. The mechanical guardians near the galactic core had activated their defense systems and were destroying any ship that came too close to their territory. Junho Ryu stood on the bridge of the human battleship Indomitable reading reports that made his stomach feel cold. 3 major trade routes had been cut off completely. The Zenthari had lost an entire battle fleet trying to force their way through the automated defenses. The Corvan Federation's brutal attacks had only made the ancient machines stronger and more aggressive. "The defense network is learning from every attack," explained Donghuan Bai, the human scientist who had been studying the ancient technology. "Each time someone tries to destroy them, they upgrade their weapons and shields. The Zenthari's energy beams are now completely useless against them. The Corvan missiles just make them build better point defense systems." Nari Moon sat quietly at a special console designed for Villani harmonic communication. Her crystal body glowed softly as she listened to the strange signals coming from the automated guardians. "There is something familiar about their communications," she said through her translation device. "It reminds me of very old Villani songs from before our recorded history." The Galactic Council was meeting in emergency session as reports of the crisis continued to worsen. Species that depended on trade through the blocked routes were beginning to face shortages of food and medicine. Entire civilizations were cut off from the rest of the galaxy. The Council's attempts to negotiate with the machines had failed completely because the Guardians did not seem to recognize any current species as authorized to pass through their territory. "We need the humans," admitted Admiral Vexathara during a council debate that was broadcast across the galaxy. Their unconventional tactics might succeed where traditional military approaches have failed. The request for human assistance came with conditions that would have been unthinkable before the Villani rescue. The Council agreed to lift all economic sanctions against human worlds. They promised to release all human prisoners held by the Corvan Federation. Most importantly, they offered humanity and the Villani joint representation in the Council itself. "They are desperate," Hanul observed as he read the Council's formal request. He was now serving as an unofficial ambassador for the Human-Villani Alliance. They have tried everything they know how to do, and nothing has worked. The question is whether we can do any better, replied Jun-Ho over the communication link. His battle fleet was the largest human military force ever assembled, but it was still tiny compared to what the Zenthari and Corvin had already lost. Nari had been working with Dong Huan to analyze the ancient signals for weeks. Her harmonic abilities allowed her to detect patterns in the machine communications that human computers could not recognize. I think I understand what they are trying to say, she announced during a strategy meeting that included leaders from multiple species. The Guardians are not evil, she explained as her body pulsed with thoughtful blue light. They are afraid. They were built to protect something very important, and they think everyone who approaches them is trying to steal or destroy it. They have been alone for so long that they have forgotten how to tell the difference between friends and enemies. Dong Huan nodded as he studied Nari's harmonic analysis on his screens. The defense network was designed to respond to specific authorization codes, but those codes are in languages that have been dead for thousands of years. The Guardians think everyone who approaches them is an invader because no one can speak to them properly. Can you learn their language? Asked Admiral Vexithara. The proud Zenthari commander was asking for help from the same humans she had tried to stop during the Villani rescue. Not alone, Nari replied honestly. The harmonic patterns are too complex for any one person to master. But working together with human technology and Villani abilities, we might be able to create a translation system. The plan that emerged was more dangerous than anything the humans had attempted before. Small teams of volunteers would need to get close enough to the automated Guardians to establish communication. The machines had destroyed every ship that entered their territory for the past year, but the human Villani teams would have to trust that talking instead of fighting might produce different results. The first attempt will probably fail, Jun-Ho warned the volunteer crews. We are asking you to fly directly into the most dangerous area in the galaxy based on our guess about what some ancient machines might be thinking. Hanul was piloting the lead ship with Nari operating the experimental communication equipment. Their vessel was a modified human freighter equipped with both human computers and Villani harmonic generators. If their theory was wrong, they would be destroyed within minutes of entering Guardian territory. Guardian Network. This is the vessel. Harmony requesting permission to approach, Nari broadcast, using a combination of ancient harmonic patterns and human digital signals. Her crystal body blazed with intense concentration as she tried to speak in a language that had been forgotten for millennia. For long minutes there was no response except the threatening energy signatures of weapon systems locking onto their ship. Then something miraculous happened. The ancient machines began broadcasting recognition codes that had not been used for thousands of years. They are asking who we represent, Nari translated excitedly. They want to know if we have authorization from the Builders to enter their protected zone. The Builders were a legendary species that had vanished from the galaxy long before any current civilization developed space travel. But Nari had discovered something amazing in the oldest Villani historical songs, references to tall beings of crystal and light who had taught the early Villani about harmony and mathematics before disappearing into the deep cosmos. Tell them we represent the heirs of the Builders, Hanul suggested. Tell them we have come to restore the ancient peace. Nari's translation was a complex harmony that combined Villani musical mathematics with human logical structures. The machines paused their weapons charging and requested additional verification. What followed was the strangest conversation in galactic history, as Nari attempted to prove their peaceful intentions to artificial intelligences that had been alone for eons. They want to know why the heirs abandoned them, Nari reported. They have been guarding the Builder archives for thousands of years, waiting for someone to return and tell them their mission is complete. The solution required both human courage and Villani wisdom. Teams of volunteers had to physically board the ancient Guardian stations to convince the machines that they were not invaders, but inheritors of the Builder legacy. The stations were filled with technology so advanced that human scientists could barely understand how it worked. The Guardians were never meant to be weapons, Dong Huan realized as he studied the ancient computers. They were librarians. They have been protecting the greatest collection of knowledge in the galaxy. The Builder archives contained scientific discoveries and philosophical wisdom from dozens of extinct civilizations, medical techniques that could cure diseases that still plagued modern species. engineering principles that could make space travel safer and faster, agricultural methods that could feed billions of people, art and literature from cultures that had been forgotten for millennia. This is why the Guardians were so protective, Nari explained as her harmonic abilities helped interface with the ancient data systems. They were not guarding empty space. They were protecting the accumulated wisdom of entire civilizations. The opening of the Builder archives changed the galaxy forever. Species that had been enemies for centuries found common ground in studying the ancient knowledge together. The Xanthari learned new forms of art that helped them express emotions they had thought were weaknesses. The Corvin discovered philosophical texts that taught them about honor without violence. Most importantly, the crisis had proven that cooperation worked better than conquest. The human-Villani alliance had succeeded where pure military force had failed. Their combination of courage, compassion, and wisdom had solved a problem that threatened the entire galaxy. We request that humanity and the Villani be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, Admiral Vexithara announced during the ceremony that formally opened the archives to all species. They have demonstrated leadership qualities that our civilization needs. Hanel stood beside Haiwan in the council chambers as the vote was taken. The crystal being who had once been a refugee fleeing a dying world was now representing her species in the highest levels of galactic government. The human cargo captain who had risked everything to save strangers was now helping to guide the future of known space. Do you think we changed them, or they changed us? Haywin asked, as they watched representatives from dozens of species working together to study the Builder knowledge. I think we changed each other, Hanel replied. The galaxy is becoming something better than what any of us were alone. The final image broadcast throughout the galaxy showed human and Villani children playing together in gardens on dozens of worlds while